Today is a very big day for Dr. Oz.
It's New Jersey Day!
Yay! It's a holiday recognizing Dr. Oz's home state. So the next time he crosses the bridge back into PA, there will be a beautiful billboard to greet him.
It is always a day to celebrate Jersey, but it's that Pennsylvania Senate race generating more viral content. Democrat right there, John Fetterman, will not let voters forget that Trump-endorsed Dr. Mehmet Oz is a Jersey native, and he has gotten another Jersey mega celebrity to help.
Yo, Dr. Oz, Stevie VZ here. What are you doing in Pennsylvania? Everybody knows you live in New Jersey and you're just using your in-laws' address over there. And you do not want to mess around with John Fetterman. Trust me, he's a little out of your league. Nobody wants to see you get embarrassed.
You might not want to mess with Stevie Van Zandt. Oz hitting back, tweeting this image that accuses Fetterman of being lost. Let's dig in. Jason Johnson, Stuart Stevens, still with us. Jason, what do you think? Can Fetterman troll his way to the U.S. Senate? I'm sitting here in New Jersey laughing at that ad. But for people in Pennsylvania, are they watching? Do they care? Does that matter to them?
It does matter because it builds upon all the other problems with Dr. Oz, right? Like if Dr. Oz were a substantive candidate in other ways, people would say, okay, Fetterman, it was funny once or twice, but now we really want to talk about issues. But Dr. Oz isn't a real candidate. He's a Trump-endorsed crazy person. He's had questionable histories. And there have been other criticisms that Fetterman has put forward about him, about Oz promoting wonder drugs and all sorts of other nonsense. So it is a very, very, very effective campaign strategy to say, this guy isn't even from here, he doesn't have any policy, and I'm the person who's actually from the state. I think it's going to be effective. And frankly, Dr. Oz doesn't have a good response online, and that's the other thing that's sort of eating away at him on the campaign numbers.
Well, let's go crazy but serious, Stuart, because in Arizona, the Republican primary for governor is heating up. They've got candidate Kari Lake. She's claiming that stealing has already occurred in the election, and there is absolutely no proof of that. How dangerous is that?
Well, look, this is what the Republican Party has become. I mean, the essence of democracy is somebody's got to be willing to lose. And Republicans have decided they aren't willing to lose. They're for democracy when they win, and they aren't when they lose. So, I mean, this is like she's pre-spinning a defeat, so she won't accept it. This is how democracies die. This sort of unacceptance of any ability to recognize that the other side's viewpoint is valid, and that majority of voters or the plurality of voters have decided that the others are a better choice. That's how a civil society has to work. And the Republicans have decided that that's not how they want to operate the party. And there's a lot of ways to kind of maybe edge this, but that's really what this comes down to. It's an attack on the fundamental reason and proof of how you can have a democratic society. And Republicans are attacking that, and that's what autocracies do.
Jason, what are your thoughts? Because as she's claiming with absolutely no proof that the election is already being stolen, we're watching the January 6th hearings play out and watching Republican after Republican, Trump's inner circle, make it really clear that the big lie is a lie, and he continues to push it. How dangerous is that? What is it doing to us?
Well, Stephanie, it depends on who's watching, right? Like, if you're a Kari Lake supporter, you already believe in that nonsense. You're not watching the January 6th hearing. You're watching that other network, right, where they don't do any sort of coverage of it one way or another. The average person has been watching the coverage, and so when they hear that from Kari, they're like, hey, you sound like a nutty person. If you want to tell me that there was corruption in a Phoenix mayor's race, that's one thing. But selling me on a whole national conspiracy full of aliens and Alex Jones and stuff like that, nobody really buys that. It alienates you. But, Stephanie, I'll say this is the larger issue that we see here going into the fall, above and beyond voter suppression, above and beyond the Republican sort of dime store front for the terrorist movement, is if they wanted to actually compete fairly, they've picked so many nutcases between Herschel Walker and Dr. Oz and Kari Lake that they're going to lose, assuming we can have a nominally fair election, they're going to lose races that they could have won. because they were so arrogant that they thought that putting some sort of Trump supporter, some sort of Trump acolyte was going to be enough to win elections in states where people are like, look, I'm more concerned about COVID and inflation, not what Emmett Oz was selling as far as magic beans and not Kari Lake and her crazy conspiracy theories.
Okay, but Stuart, why do Republicans need to sell a whole lot of crazy? You've spent your career working with trying to elect major Republicans, right? Mitt Romney, George W. Bush. Does the Republican Party no longer have a platform that's appealing to the American people, that they can only exist in a crazy zone?
Well, the Republican Party, let's talk about that platform. For the first time in its history, the Republican Party passed a platform that it is whatever their leader thought it was. I mean, you had to be inside these fights over the platform to realize just how extraordinary that is. Well, okay, wherever Donald Trump wants. There is no conservative party in America. I mean, be able to gun them ahead and say, what does it mean to be a conservative American today? I say, shoot me. There's no philosophy of government. They can't articulate a unified theory of coherent policy. Now, you talk to Elizabeth Warren, you ask her what she believes in. You may not agree with her, but she has a theory of government. She can articulate it. And it is a failure, ultimately, of policy that is at the root of what has happened to the Republican Party. And it goes back really to race. The Republican Party failed to attract non-white voters. They never really came up with the policies that were necessary to prove to those who weren't white and like themselves that they could better their lives. And because of that failure, they had two ways to go. Either they could keep working and admit it was a failure, or they could just try to become a white extremist party and make it harder for other non-white voters to vote. And that's the choice they've made. And it's at the verge of potentially ripping America apart.
So I guess Donald Trump, on his 2 visits to black communities, saying on the south side of Chicago, vote for me, what do you have to lose, was not a winning strategy. Jason, we're now seeing Democrats raise big money to target suburban women. Are these, I know you normally don't like to talk about swing voters, but are these the voters that could make a difference in November? Issues like abortion, are these going to get a lot of people who weren't engaged, weren't interested? Are they going to get them to show up?
I've said all along that when it comes to sort of people in the excerpts, first off, we have to expand our definition of the suburbs, right? It ain't just white women anymore. It's black women. It's Asian women. It's people of all kinds. So spending that kind of money makes sense to people in the suburbs. There are also people who are policy concerned. They worry about schools. They worry about gas prices. But I'll say this, and I've pointed this out, and this is why we've seen a change in the congressional ballot. The overturning of Roe v. Wade by an absolutely illegitimate rogue Supreme Court is a motivating factor. And here's a small element of this that I know as a college professor. Regardless of how you may feel right now about the overturning of Roe versus Wade, wait until people's kids go to college this fall. Wait until those suburban parents' daughters and sons are in school this fall. Then that abortion issue is going to become much more prescient in their minds. So, yes, I think that spending the money in the suburbs makes sense. Those are the kinds of people who can be motivated to vote in midterms when they haven't in the past. And I don't think right now, I actually don't think this fall, at this point in July, is going to be as bad for Democrats as a lot of people think, all things considered with voter suppression.
All things considered. Jason Johnson, Stuart Stevens, thank you for making us smarter.